Most people believe that confronting a narcissist is the ultimate power move. What they don't realize is that the one thing that genuinely terrifies a narcissist requires no words, no argument, and no reaction at all. There is a question worth sitting with before anything else in this video is examined. What does it actually mean to exist from the inside as a narcissistic personality? Not the surface behavior, not the tactics, not the carefully maintained performance of confidence and superiority, but the interior experience of being this particular kind of person in the world. What most people don't realize is that for the narcissist, the experience of existing is not self-sustaining. Most people carry an internal sense of self that persists through ordinary daily life without requiring continuous external input to remain intact. A quiet confidence in their own continuity, a background awareness of who they are that doesn't need to be constantly refreshed by outside confirmation. This internal experience, so ordinary that most people never notice it, is precisely what the narcissist's psychological architecture failed to develop. For the narcissist, the self is not generated from within. It is reflected from without. It exists moment to moment in the attention, reactions, and emotional responses of the people around them. And this means that being ignored is not simply uncomfortable. It is not merely frustrating or inconvenient. It is destabilizing in a way that reaches into the foundation of how they experience themselves as real. Pay attention to what this reveals about the narcissist's continuous hunger for attention. It was never vanity. It was never simple arrogance. It was a structural requirement, the ongoing external input without which the internal experience of existing as a significant, capable, superior person begins to dissolve. This is the hidden reason ignoring works at a depth that nothing else reaches. Confrontation confirms significance. Anger confirms impact. Even hatred confirms that they matter enough to provoke a strong response. Silence confirms nothing. And for a self that depends entirely on external confirmation to remain stable, nothing is the most threatening experience available. There is a specific sequence of events that unfolds inside the narcissist's behavioral system the moment they register that they are being genuinely ignored. And it is one of the most revealing sequences in the entire behavioral repertoire of the narcissistic personality, precisely because it is one of the least controlled. Most of what the narcissist does is managed, calibrated, produced with sufficient awareness of social expectations to maintain the plausibility of the persona. But the response to being ignored strips the calibration away with a speed that exposes something the persona was always constructed to conceal. What most people don't realize is that the narcissist's ability to read and respond to the emotional environment around them, their primary tactical advantage in every relationship, depends entirely on having an emotional environment to read. Your reactions, your emotional investments, your predictable responses to specific approaches. All of this constitutes the data the narcissist system runs on. And genuine ignoring doesn't simply reduce that data. It eliminates it entirely. This is where the control collapse becomes visible, because control, for the narcissist, was never about force. It was about information. Knowing what you feel, what you fear, what you hope, and responding to those things with precision. Remove the information, and the control mechanism has nothing to operate on. The narcissist finds themselves in a relational environment they cannot read, cannot predict, and therefore cannot navigate, with the tactical efficiency they depend on. Pay attention to what this produces, because the escalation sequence that follows is not strategic, it is reactive, increasingly transparent provocations designed to generate any reaction at all. Comments calibrated to produce guilt situations engineered to force acknowledgement. Each attempt slightly less controlled than the last. Most people miss this warning sign because the escalation looks like emotion. It isn't, it is a system running out of data cycling through every available method of restoring the signal that has gone quiet. There is a behavioral tool in the narcissist's repertoire that gets deployed with particular urgency when ignoring has persisted long enough to register as a genuine threat rather than a temporary disruption, and it is the one most likely to succeed. Not because it is the most sophisticated, but because it targets something that the silence itself cannot protect against. It targets memory, the Hoover mechanism, named for the way it attempts to pull someone back in, is rarely as crude as simply asking for another chance. In its most effective form, it arrives disguised as something that seems to have nothing to do with re-engagement at all. A message that appears to require nothing in return. A reference to a shared memory so specific and so warmly framed that it seems to come from a place of genuine feeling rather than calculated strategy. A moment of apparent vulnerability offered at a timing so precise that it feels spontaneous rather than engineered. What most people don't realize is that the Hoover is built almost entirely from information the narcissist collected across the entire duration of the relationship. Every conversation in which you revealed what you needed emotionally, every moment in which you described what would make you feel loved, understood, or valued, every instance in which you explained what was missing. And in doing so, handed the narcissist a detailed blueprint of exactly what to simulate when keeping you required it. The Hoover doesn't offer something new. It offers the specific thing you always wanted, in the specific form you always described, at the specific moment when your silence has built enough internal distance to make you most susceptible to its arrival. Pay attention to the timing of these re-engagement attempts, because the timing is never accidental. The narcissist, even while being ignored, is monitoring the environment with the peripheral sensitivity that has always characterized their relational behavior. They are watching for the moments when the silence might be most fragile. Periods of visible stress, significant life events, moments of apparent loneliness, and calibrating their approach to arrive at precisely these thresholds. This is exactly what they want you to believe is coincidence. It never is. When the Hoover fails, when the silence holds through the carefully timed vulnerability performance, through the specific memory invocations, through the approaches most historically effective with this particular target. Something shifts in the narcissist's behavioral strategy that reveals a great deal about what was driving the re-engagement attempts in the first place. The smear campaign activates. Most people experience this shift as confusing, even shocking. The person who was just performing vulnerability, just offering warmth, just presenting themselves as someone who genuinely missed the connection, now begins systematically attacking the character of the person they were just trying to re-engage. The contradiction seems irrational. How can someone move so quickly from apparent affection to apparent hostility? The hidden reason behind this behavioral pivot reveals something fundamental about the narcissist's relationship with other people. Neither the warmth nor the hostility was ever really about you. Both were approaches, different methods of producing the same outcome. The warmth was an attempt to re-engage through positive pull. The smear campaign is an attempt to re-engage through social pressure. Both are organized around the same objective, ending the silence by forcing a reaction from someone who has stopped providing one voluntarily. The content changes. The function remains identical. When direct approaches have failed, and the smear campaign has not produced the social pressure required to force a reaction, the narcissist moves into a phase of operation that is perhaps the most structurally revealing of everything observed so far, because it exposes the degree to which their influence depends not on their own capabilities, but on the willingness of others to serve as instruments of it. The proxy deployment begins. What most people don't realize is that the narcissist's social network was never simply a collection of genuine relationships. It was always, to varying degrees, a resource, a pool of people whose trust, goodwill, and emotional investment could be selectively activated and directed toward the narcissist's current objectives. During the relationship, this network served functions of triangulation and supply supplementation. In the aftermath of being ignored, it serves a different but structurally identical function, delivering what the narcissist can no longer deliver directly. A mutual friend reaches out with concern, carrying a message that seems to come from genuine care but arrive from a very specific source. A family member mentions, seemingly in passing, that the narcissist has been struggling, framing the information in a way that seems designed to reactivate guilt or empathy in the person who has gone silent. A colleague passes along information about the narcissist's current state with a frequency that seems slightly too consistent to be casual conversation. Pay attention to the content of these proxy communications, because it follows the same pattern as every preceding re-engagement attempt, simply routed through a different channel. The vulnerability performance, the suffering display, the implicit suggestion that the silence is causing damage, that the target has the power to end. Most people miss this warning sign because the message arrives through someone they trust, which is precisely why it was routed through them. Then comes something that seems, on the surface, to contradict everything that preceded it. The narcissist stops performing distress entirely and begins performing its opposite. A conspicuous, highly visible display of thriving so complete and so suddenly public that it seems almost impossible to miss. This is exactly what they want you to believe is genuine recovery. The hidden reason behind this performance points somewhere else entirely, directly at the one person it was designed to reach. When you lay the complete sequence out, the existential threat of silence, the control collapse that follows the removal of readable data, the escalating and increasingly transparent re-engagement attempts, the Hoover built from everything you once revealed about what you needed. The smear campaign designed to force a reaction through social pressure, the proxy deployments routing influence through trusted third parties, the false indifference performance aimed at producing jealousy from someone who has stopped looking, the internal deterioration that begins when all external maintenance material has been withdrawn, and the terrifying encounter with an interior emptiness that the entire behavioral architecture was constructed to keep hidden. What becomes visible is something that individual moments inside these dynamics almost never allow you to see with this degree of clarity. The fear was always there, beneath every display of superiority, beneath every manipulation tactic, beneath every carefully engineered situation designed to extract attention and confirm significance. A profound and structural terror was always operating, not of you specifically, not of any particular consequence or confrontation, but of the specific experience that your silence creates when it persists long enough to strip away every external distraction the narcissist was using to avoid it. The experience of existing without confirmation, of being present in their own interior world, without the continuous noise of other people's reactions to drown out what that world actually contains. What most people don't realize is that the narcissist's hunger for attention was never really about the attention itself. It was about what the attention prevented. Every reaction you provided, every moment of engagement, conflict, warmth, or defensiveness was functioning as insulation between the narcissist and the interior experience that silence makes unavoidable. This is the hidden reason ignoring produces a response so disproportionate to what appears to be happening on the surface. From the outside, someone simply stopped responding. From the inside of the narcissist's psychological experience, something far more threatening occurred. The primary defense against self-confrontation was removed, and what remained in its absence was the one thing their entire life was organized around never having to face. Pay attention to everything the escalating response reveals. Because a person who was genuinely confident, genuinely superior, genuinely unbothered by the opinions and engagement of others would not produce this sequence in response to being ignored. They would simply continue. The desperation visible in every phase of the ignoring response is not a reaction to what you did. It is a window into what was always there, waiting beneath the performance, beneath the tactics, beneath the carefully maintained presentation of someone who needed nothing and no one. The silence didn't create what you are seeing. It simply removed everything that was hiding it.